Our next job is to turn these switches, this wire, this big sheet of cardboard into steering wheel switches, as I've got indicators and the headlight on the steering wheel. So basically indicator on each thumb, and I'll put the headlight down there, so if I need to flash the lights I can. Also the steering wheel already has a push button there for the horn, so I'm going to connect that. At the moment on the car everything's on stalks, which I want to get rid of because I can't get the steering wheel any closer to me and be able to reach the stalks, and this will allow much better access. So I did consider using the Bluetooth switch sets, which are no doubt really good. They look very, very neat, but they're a few £100. These switches were, I think they're about £5 or £3 each, something like that. If you think about doing a project like this, it's very important obviously the switches are waterproof and are the right type. So with switches there's a couple of things you need to look at, or any electronics really. The IP rating, which the first number, so these are IP67, the first number refers to dust ingress, the other one's water ingress. Basically IP67 means it's going to be absolutely fine on a car. I think it actually means you can use it to several meters underwater. For the indicators, the other thing you need to know is that they're what's called NO, normally open, so when that's in the off position there's no contact between the two contacts. When you press it, it's then closed. You then got short circuit, so your indicators can flash. And what I'm using, because I've got a quick rack on the car, so it's about 2 turns from lock to lock. I'm just using some of this curly stuff, so that will, when you steer, this will just wrap around the steering wheel, so there's no issue with that. It is very thin wire, so on the horn I will need to add a relay into the system. So at the moment the switch just operates the horn, but these tiny little wires, they're not going to take the current that a horn draws. I think it's a couple of amps or something, so I will have to add a relay into it. But the first thing is where the cardboard comes in, and it's working out the position of all this, and I'm going to use the cardboard to make a template, so as I can then just copy the template onto a piece of alley and cut it all out first time correct. First job's just to trace around the steering wheel onto the card, so as I've got an accurate starting point for my template. Then what I've done is I've just taken on the back of the switches, there's like a little mounting nut, so I've taken that off the back, and I can then use that as a stencil and an easier sort of position marker for where I'm going to decide to actually put the holes for the switches. So I want the plate, obviously I want the switches to be as close as I can to the steering wheel, so as my fat thumb reaches. But on the other hand, I think it is advantage to have some gap, so then when I'm steering, obviously what I don't want is this in the way of my thumb being there, and then when I'm steering I can get my hand in between. So it's going to be a bit tricky getting that right. Thumb driving, thumb reaching, and let's see if I can find a nice happy position for the switch in between the two. It does look like we've literally got to put it right on the edge with thumb reaching. Should be fairly comfortable. I might go slightly safe because of course with this switch I don't have to reach the far side of the switch. I've only got to be able to reach about that far. So I think if I make that my switch position, the inner one being the hole I'd have to drill and the outer one being the outer border of the actual switch, I think that's fairly good. Okay, so there's my red pen mark, and that gives a nice little bit of room there. So I'll have a little bit of metal. I've actually found some metal in the garage that's about, I think it's about 2mm thick. So it's fairly stiff, so I don't need masses of edge around the outside. So a little bit of use of a ruler, I've just transposed over to the other side for the left indicator. Now I've just got to work out where here I want the headlight switch to be. I'm putting it on the right hand side, just basically because I'm right handed and I can't think of any better reason to decide where to put it. So that's the switches all marked out. Now I just need to work out where I want to cut this card. Really, these are only going to need to just sort of almost stick out a little bit, so I think nice smooth curve around here, back down to the steering wheel, and then back around here again. It's fine. I have considered, do I need like leaving a little bit of space on the top here, potentially to say to mount any warning switch, so that would be really slap bang in my face. Like an LED for over boost or something that I could run off of the boost control. Let's see, one of the other projects. I think what I might do is just leave, say, 10mm there. I'll mark it up and see how it looks, I think. So I've drawn the green line around here with a margin of 10mm. I'm going to put a 10mm there. I may decide to take it out when it's on the car, but obviously leaving it in there in metal and seeing what it looks like and if it is potentially useful in the future is much easier than not having it there and then deciding I wanted it there. Again, I put 10mm margin there. You see here, that's just encroaching on my thumb gap. See, I'm going to cut it out that way, and then once it's in metal I can then experiment a bit more with position, and then we've got around that one. So that's all cut out. It looks okay. I've actually got fairly good thumb space either side. The only thing I notice that when it's cut out is this looks a little bit odd and that looks a bit thin. So I think what I'll do when I mark it up in alley is I may actually leave that bit in there, and then there's no chance of there being any flex on that button. That's one of the beauties of doing this sort of cardboard template thing, is you can see stuff like that. Obviously if I'd have cut that in alley like that straight away, you can't put it back on, can you? So I think that may be okay. I may even leave this margin a little bit bigger, because if I do decide I want to put any warning lights on there, that's pretty well all I can do sat here at my desk. By the way, if you're wondering what the awful background noise is I'm currently 3D printing. That's going to be a little cover for the steering column, because where I'm taking the stalks off, the bit that holds the stalks on, is a really ugly looking piece of cast metal. So I've cut that off, and I'm going to put this like sleeve over onto the back of the steering wheel, and to kind of cover the messy old steering column. So I apologise for that, but that's why there's this really weird whiny noise. Anyway, as I was saying, so next stage now is going to be down in the garage cutting out the piece of alley. So alongside making this indicator panel to go on the steering wheel, I've also been making a new dash for the car. It's about 2mm alley, which I was planning on using the same stuff for the indicators. Unfortunately, the piece of metal I've got left over I can't quite fit on. So I've gone on the scrounge to my mate Brian, the guy who came out in the car, the ride video, and he had some of this 3mm, I'm not sure that's quite 3mm. It's actually better because it's slightly thicker and slightly stiffer and easily big enough. So I'm going to get cracking and cut that out and start doing this. So get a good old permanent marker. I'd rather use a Sharpie, but It got really cold the other week. I think my Sharpies might have frozen because none of them seem to work properly. So I've normally got 2 out here in the garage and both have stopped. Could be complete coincidence that both Sharpies have run out at the same time as it got really cold. I don't know. Sharpies not like getting frozen. So, there's our shape. I think the best way of cutting this out is going to be with the jigsaw. As you may just have noticed then, the vibration with using G-clamps is still quite a lot, and it went through the desk, through the workbench, and the camera ended up on the floor, and I now have a broken tripod. So this video won't have any more fun bits of me actually doing work, because I have no way of holding the camera. So I've roughed that out there with the jigsaw. Now what I'll do is I'll drill the holes and then get a file to sort of clean all this up and kind of see where we are. It'll be a case of a bit of trial and error then, really, with offering up to the steering wheel, see what it looks like, trim it up and get it looking all nice. So I've got the holes drilled for the switches. What I'm going to do now is do the big hole for in the middle, and then I've got all the bits that are kind of can't be moved, and I can then file and just smooth everything in so as it all looks kind of a nice flowing shape. All the holes done, and obviously the shape roughed out. Now it's time to sort of offer it up against the steering wheel and start looking at how I'm going to make it fit and look nice and neat and all that kind of thing. It's not looking too bad. You can see obviously this area here, I need to take that back so as it sort of flush with the steering wheel. Unfortunately, I didn't have a saw drill quite of the right size, so I'm going to have to file that round bit out a bit. I think these, once they're cleaned up, will be okay. I might have to, the gap to the steering wheel might be a bit small there, so I might trim that side a bit more. But now it's just trial and error with a file, really. I'm still not sure about if I'm going to leave that top bit or no. After about an hour of grinding and filing, marking, and more grinding, and more filing, and more marking, then thinking I don't need the grinder now, I just need the files. I've ended up with this, which I think is looking okay. I'll just show you on the steering wheel. There we are on the steering wheel, and I've just noticed I need to do a little bit more filing around that part. I'm fairly happy with that. I think what I will do is I will brush the alley. I did think about covering it in the same black. Where is it? Oh, I can't find it in the garage now. The same black that I've covered the dash in. I think it'd actually look nicer in alley, but I brushed the alley, I think, partly because where I've been doing various stuff, it's not all that great a finish on it now. But also, I know it's pretty unlikely to happen, but if the sun was in the wrong direction and glints straight off the alley in my face, I get dazzled really easily. So hopefully the brushed alley would stop that happening. So next stage is obviously just to do a little bit more filing on that area. Then I'll offer it up on the car just to make 100% sure it's all okay. And it will be doing the wiring. What a lovely wife I have. She's just come out here with a nice hot cup of coffee to keep me going. I'm nearly done. I did say I'm done with the filing, but I decided I needed to just smooth a couple of corners off. Looking quite blingy with the blue plastic taken off, but I think I definitely will just take the shine off for that, because as much as my shiny alley looks nice, when it's open to the air it'll probably corrode quite badly. So I think just doing a brush surface on it is going to be the best of both worlds. So I've just taken the shine off there with a wire brush. I'm quite happy with that now. I've got a bit of room up on here if I do want to put any of these warning lights. So next thing, I'm just going to bolt it up onto the car just to make 100% sure. Because if it is okay, fitting the switches and doing the wiring I can do up in my office far better than I can do in the garage, because I've got all the soldering iron and heat shrink and all that kind of stuff I need is all up there. So you may have already noticed if you watch any of my videos, I do like your cup of coffee when I'm doing my work, stuff out in the garage. I have to say, when someone else makes the coffee for you, it's always that bit nicer. I don't know why. Must be some psychological thing. Either that or I just don't know how to make a cup of instant coffee, and my wife does. Maybe it could be that, couldn't it? So it's just temporary fitted onto the car, and I'm quite pleased with that. It's the switch position, so it's not in my way when I'm normally driving. Switch position is nice and easy for the indicators. This would be the headlight switch down here, which is slightly more, but I mean that's no big deal. So it just means if I flash the lights it'd be like that, and the horn would be in the middle here, like on a conventional car, I suppose. You can see these holes here are where the switches and warning lights will be. I can't quite get the camera to get the view that I have, but I can see all those fine. So if any warning light comes on, they're like for the brake and brake level and stuff like that. Well, in fact, actually, I'm telling a lie. The brake one is going to be this one up here. So if the brake fluid level ever drops, that is one that I definitely can't miss. The only thing I may do is I might bring that gauge. This is really wide angle, so it's making that look like it's miles away. But I might just bring that forward, I think. Anyway, but that's a slightly different issue. As far as this is concerned, I'm happy with that now. So it's just a case of going back upstairs and doing the wiring on that. Hi, thanks for getting to the end of the video. If you're not already subscribed, please do so now. Just hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell button, and that way YouTube will tell you when there's any new videos. We've got some big plans ahead for the channel, including possibly a car build from scratch. So if you want to get involved with that, now's the time to subscribe. Cheers then, bye.